It had been a few months since Zook had joined the crew of the Fiji Mermaid, and they weren't sure when the incredulity and awe was supposed to wear off, but they hadn't reached that point yet. After they'd spent time learning about their fellow crew members, including body language and voice inflections and such, Stefan asked if Zook was interested in changing their translator voice from its default when speaking human languages. The answer was yes, mostly because they hadn't thought about it. Gender wasn't something they much considered relevant, but there were different voices that went with different personalities and demeanors. With a little more education about humans and their voices, Zook, Stefan and Tina, since she was also human, found one the Siliconian felt suited them. The other crew members also gave assistance, as each was a different species, and that evening turned into an all-around educational experience. From knowing more about the Minikans, who were haughty, versus timid, to the Niltonians, that were gregarious or more chill, Zook felt a little more at home than they had before. There was quite a bit of downtime on the ship, not because of commute, since most of their trips weren't too far, but imports from off-planet were always a hassle. No tech could change the fact that they were often suspicious things flagged by scans or electronic forms that had been submitted incorrectly. If it was a few days to a big holiday, especially one with gift-giving, just getting docked could take the better part of the day. Zook's duties were substantial, considering they needed to keep track of every moving, beeping, blinking part on the ship. But even so, the crew would often end up hanging out for meals for an hour or two. Zook just joined them for the company, since their own meals were minerals that they only had to top off every few days. It inevitably led them to pick up more knowledge, and fun anecdotes and stories, that helped them learn about others in the galaxy. Of course, Zook also kept in touch with people back home, two who they'd grown up with, and their best friend Cook. And Cook had encouraged them to post what they were up to on a social media profile, being a Siliconian on an off-world ship. A lot had changed in Zook's mind when it came to what Siliconians were capable of, from their first day of meeting the crew to now. Siliconians weren't all useless chunks of rock anymore, at least to Zook. And it turned out, not to others either. When Zook went to their computer one day to go online, they were confused at Cook's message. "I think your Galaxy Space profile would do better if you interacted with your followers." This was confusing, because Zook wasn't aware they had a Galaxy Space profile. They replied with that sentiment before going over to the website. It was there that they realized their public SiliconSpace social media profile was owned by the same company, and everything went up over there as well automatically. This can't be right. Zook grew still as they scrolled through the profile on Galaxy Space, and their electricity slowed to a dull buzz. They couldn't believe it. They had over 12,000 followers. So many were Siliconian, of course, but they were fascinated to find a handful from other species as well. They saw comments about their electrical engineering work, but also from people who had read the post about how Captain Tina had ended up crying from laughter when she'd opened her door to them sitting there with googly eyes on. So many comments about Zook being friends with and working with their alien crewmates. I'm confused. Who are all these people? Cook was online at the moment, and the other tab blinked with a message reply from them. "This is hilarious. You didn't know how popular you are? Why am I popular? Are you kidding? Because you were one of the first Siliconians on a ship with a real job. You have a bunch of other species as co-workers who are your friends. You fly from planet to planet. They take selfies with you. And because every time you mention something you do that's useful, there are thousands of Siliconians learning to do it, so they can put it on their resume too." Zook didn't know what to say, and they surely didn't know what to do with this newfound fame. They definitely weren't going to be someone who checked it and posted every day. It just wasn't who they were, and they didn't want to get wrapped up in it. But they also didn't want to just leave it to flounder on its own. And they wanted to make sure everyone knew this was their profile, to verify it by checking in and posting fairly regularly, in case a scammer tried to make a duplicate. That happened all too often. They considered it for a few minutes before making a post. "Hey everyone, I'm shocked at what I just found because I didn't know everything that I was posting on SiliconSpace was also happening here. It's immensely flattering and quite surprising to realize so many people have taken an interest in me and my new job. Thank you all so much for your kind words." After a brief pause to reread it, they posted what they'd written. Hopefully the others on the crew wouldn't be annoyed that the photos with the crew that they'd been posting had migrated platforms. But of course, Zook would never post anything that could compromise or complicate Tina's business. The work posts they made were about technical things, and they'd never once spoken badly of anyone on the crew. That felt just like a social media rule, though. Everyone knew anything you posted could end up anywhere. Zook went back to their message window with Cook, and saw that they'd said something else. "Are you planning to go to Earth for the Siliconian job fair thingy?" Now Zook just felt out of the loop. "What is that? And how come I haven't heard of it yet?" Don't feel too bad. They're just starting to put it together. It's just happening fast, or at least faster than we thought, because it's got the potential to be bigger than the founders were hoping. Giant companies started signing up, and then the founders could really get to work. They're calling it SiliconFest. I called it a job fair, but that's just because that was the original purpose. It's becoming kind of a talent fair. And with more and more of us able to get work off-world, mostly from human ships of course, there's been quite a lot of culture exchange. They've got that sort of stuff planned too. It sounds awesome, and I know if I tell my crew they'll absolutely want to go. Zook was right on that point. Tina told them to put it on the work calendar when the date for the event was set. The crew were all also excited to hear about Zook's Galnet fame, and all of them gathered around the workstation in the engine room to use the big screen to check it out. "Hey, you're even famous enough to have haters," Stefan exclaimed at one point. "You should go back to Siliconia before you crash that ship and kill everyone on it, you electrified puddle of sand," Zook stated. "Well, at least that person came up with a decent insult," Stefan chuckled. "Captain, if you want, I could put in a good word for the company. I mean, they know I work for you, but I haven't said anything so far that would be considered a plug, because I didn't know all these people were reading." I think we should pass on that," Tina replied thoughtfully, her hands on her hips. "Keep this yours. Since you didn't know what was going on for so long, it's really authentic, and everyone will be disappointed if you change things. I've seen some of your posts on SiliconSpace, of course, and I've always thought they were great." "Oh, thank you," they said. "All right, no changes then." "Well, you should fill in your details in the About section," Molio noted, "and make that photo of us all from the trip to Grinkilly, the good one, your background. Aside from that, you've already been doing a great job without knowing it. That's how you amass so many followers." Zook followed their crewmates' advice, and that night before lights out, they checked the post they'd made. The comments were as expected, mostly amused, some delighted to see a post addressing the followers. When the date was set for SiliconFest, they made a post about how thrilled they were to read about what was being organised, and that they and their crew were eager and excited to attend. The variety of vendors was staggering. Luckily, those giving talks would all be recorded and available to watch online, because Zook wanted to watch every single one. "What's the Orange County Convention Center?" Zook asked one mealtime. "Oh, it's in Orlando, Florida, in America," Stefan told him, picking at his mashed potatoes. "Tons of events are held there. Biggest... Is it the biggest convention center in America? We nearly lost that state to global warming, but managed to keep most of it. Not surprising in hindsight. Disney, this behemoth trillion-dollar company, didn't want to lose what they'd built. They kept everything running and invested bundles of money into maintaining it, until the tech caught up and the planet started to heal. They had to close during the summer season for a while, and some billionaires had to sell a few yachts, but they made it. "Money makes the world go round," Tina said to Zook, "and keeps parts of it above water, apparently." "Well then, I'm not at all surprised that's where SiliconFest is being held," Zook said. "Humans think Siliconians could be big money, and not just in engineering." "We don't think, we know," Stefan said, pointing his spoon at Zook. "And soon, the rest of the galaxy will know it too." Zook's electric loop spiked in pride. Their pilot, a Zalkinian named Bifrol, was the only one to decide to stay with the ship for the duration of their stay when they docked on Earth. He asked them to take lots of photos, but an event like this wasn't fun for him for anxiety reasons. They promised to bring him back souvenirs. Once they had each programmed their communicators for the local networks, they took the train to the city. The crew had left the ship early, knowing the commute would take time, and it was even worse than they'd imagined. They got off at a station a few miles from the convention center, and took a bus that was shuttling people for the event the rest of the way, and traffic was horrendous. But Zook didn't mind how long it took, because they'd never seen such an event before, and as their bus got closer and closer, the sight became more daunting. Even the trip on the train had been amazing, because after all, this was their first time on Earth. They also took some time to skim their communicators' summaries on human etiquette again. Once they all finally made their way through one of the many sets of double doors into the main building, everyone who had eyes had dilated pupils, and they were all visibly excited. Each of them received a name tag with their information on it, and their choice of a lanyard or clip, etc., from a selection that had something for any species. After checking in and getting their welcome packets, they figured they might as well simply go from one hall to the next, in the order listed. The majority of attendees were human, of course, but there were others here and there, enough to interest Zook. They'd assumed this would by and large be a convention organized by humans and Siliconians, with the latter running the booths. But that wasn't the case. There were also a surprising amount of other species there, and occasionally there were even human-run booths for Siliconians to stop at. Plus, the full schedule of speakers, both Siliconian and human. Zook stopped just for a moment and took it all in. This event and its purpose would have been inconceivable not long ago. They felt a swelling of pride and utter wonder rise for their species, realizing what had been done here. "I don't think I have ever been anywhere this crowded," Molio exclaimed. "After so much time off-planet, it's surreal being packed in with so many humans," Tina said. "Nice though. Cool to be home." The first hall the crew walked into was one of two set aside specifically for anything to do with electrical engineering. "This is incredible," Zook exclaimed. They struggled to take in everything around them. The crew walked down the first aisle, glancing to the Siliconians and occasional humans behind the booth tables. "And here starts the military parade," Tina piped up. They looked at several booths from companies that were household names, a full half of them from Earth. "Holy shit, that thing is gigantic," Stefan stated, staring at a mech suit situated at the back of one of the booths. It dominated the space and drew everyone's eyes, as it was meant to, presumably. Zook sparked anxiously. "Never again." "Yeah, if they were offering guests the chance to hop in, I doubt their sanity," Stefan replied. Tina looked to her two co-workers. "What? Why?" "Oh, I had that conversation with Stefan," Zook realized. "Those things are awful. You dump any excess material off your body and they lock you in. To me, it was like being buried alive. There's tons of psychological training you need to go through to use those in our military. A bunch of suits were explosively shorted out when they first started, because the Siliconians inside full-on panicked. Fuck, Tina said, her eyes wide. So, all Siliconians are claustrophobic? No, it's not like humans, Stefan told her. I checked it out. It's more like base instinct against being unable to move properly. The only time that happens on their planet is if they're in a landslide, so they evolved to do anything and everything in their power to break free. No access to mineral particulates or basic atmospheric charge in the air, despite how small it seems, just makes their hive brains freak out. Well, that sounds like a nightmare, Pickler said with a shiver. Hey, look, Stefan, Zook said excitedly, starting to move forward. At the end, that's the booth for Peterson Electronics. Ah, go, 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 he exclaimed. Peter... Tina's voice trailed off, as she and the others were left to hurry after them. I see a circuit board in their logo. Full nerd mode has engaged, it seems. Pickler chittered. An engineer and a mechanic in nerd mode are very happy people. As it should be. After all, we're here for our mineral friend, Tina said with a smile. We're not hiring another. Since Tina was captain, she did know a fair amount about the guts of her ship, so she kept her eyes and ears open for information. Pickler and Molio mostly enjoyed the atmosphere and watching their shipmates happily talk shop. Also, this was a convention after all, so they collected any free trinkets they found and tucked them away into their bags. Wait, Zerk? Klickik? Asked a Siliconian behind a booth, glancing from Zook's name tag to the others. They had a spread of various computer parts across the table. I know you! I follow your profile on Galaxy Space. You're awesome! This is your crew? Yeah, Zook managed. This is them. So cool! Could I get a photo? Of course, Tina said with a grin. The crew moved closer together. The Siliconian pulled a communicator out from under the table with a tug of electricity and pulled it to angle up at the crew, held flat against their sphere with electromagnetism. The device flashed twice, and they gave their thanks. You can pull my info from the tablet if you're in the market for upgrades to your console. I'd be psyched to sell to your crew. Well, we'd be psyched to learn more about your stuff, Stefan responded, pulling the info from the tablet onto his own. They moved on, Zook's mind still spinning at being noticed. Hey, when you get rich and famous, don't forget the little people who got you there, he said, grinning at Zook. The Siliconian could only laugh in delighted disbelief, sizzles of electricity quickly spinning around them a few times. Zook was astonished, booth after booth, talking to the Siliconians and the humans. The former all knew their staff and were more than happy to explain their work to a layman or chat with a professional. The latter were hiring or selling fascinating or useful things for Siliconians, ingenious instruments with all sorts of uses, mostly for use on spacecraft. The humans had seen an opening in the market, and, just like the humans who used contraptions and gadgets to make their lives easier, Zook realized they had jumped in with great ideas. They even saw several booths run by humans in wheelchairs. Our rolling human friends! Brilliant! They stopped to talk to several of those humans about their elevator and ramps. Conversations were being held between potential employees and company representatives, and Zook overheard several talking about the same sorts of things they discussed with Tina and Stefan when they'd first come aboard. From the computers that ran the pilot's console to the electronics in the engines, many Siliconians, the majority of whom no doubt had a BA or higher in the field they were discussing, were having amazing discussions. They're treating us like equals, Zook thought suddenly. That's what I'm feeling. They're acting like we're one of them. One of the adaptable, go anywhere, do anything, look at my appendages humans. Kirk had talked about the progress that was being made with humans, of course, and Zerk knew their friend always kept up with the latest. But they hadn't really understood the vastness of it, and the depth to it, until they'd arrived here. Surrounded as they were by this crowd at this event, though, it was impossible not to comprehend it all. Once they exited the second exhibit hall, they went to the side of the hallway to take a snack and drink break. "I need to go to more conventions. This is so much fun," Stefan said, before taking long gulps from his water bottle. Tina looked up from a bag of chips to Zerk. "Hey, you okay? You got quiet." "It's just awesome," Zerk told her. "Kirk told me once word got out there was no stopping humans, but I didn't get it until now. I feel like your species are as excited to be at this convention as we are, which is insane. We've been a member of the galaxy for over 50 years, and everyone always acted like..." Their voice trailed off as they grew thoughtful. "It's true that there's no stopping humans in any respect," Stefan spoke with a grin. "We already knew that, but sharing that with aliens is unbelievably cool. It's mind-blowing." "And that was just our staff, me and Stefan, crew on spacecrafts," Zerk exclaimed, turning back to Tina excitedly. "Everything else, the artists doing wood burning, the musicians with Tesla coils, firefighters, the ones who want to work underwater or places where there's crazy weather, the humans hiring actors, everything I read about on the net, I want to see all of them. I want to talk to all of them." "You heard the rock," Stefan declared, unwrapping a sandwich. "Fatten yourselves up because we're burning calories today. We've got booze to visit and people to talk to."